In 2023, wildfires destroyed homes and farmland in the east and in the west. Smoke from those fires forced millions of people to stay inside, and the Canadian Forest Service attributed the fires to climate change. Floods left thousands homeless, while droughts forced farmers to sell off livestock or ship them elsewhere. Last year, the Canadian Arctic experienced its hottest summer to date. 74% of Canadians agree climate change is real, but less than half believe they're being affected. This, according to a survey commissioned by the Centre for Media, Technology and Democracy. The report also found that climate denial campaigns, which existed in the 1980s through to the 2000s, now accept climate change is real, but deny immediate action is necessary, including carbon pricing. As a result, many Canadians who believe in climate change also believe that addressing it can wait.
The longer we wait to reduce emissions, the more emissions we are putting into the atmosphere in the meantime. And that's going to contribute more to climate. It's going to make the long-term impacts worse. It's going to make achieving targets harder. On the other hand, it also matters from an economic perspective. The longer we're delaying our policy signals, the longer we're delaying to creating the incentives for firms, for individuals to start shifting towards low-carbon options.
The Trudeau government committed to reducing emissions by about 40% in the next 5 years and to be net zero by 2050. To achieve this, they introduced a price on carbon to force polluters to pay. In February, federal government estimates showed carbon emissions in Canada had dropped slightly, 0.9% in 2023 compared to 2022. But despite this, Canadians are increasingly opposed to paying for carbon emissions. And for months, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre called for a carbon tax election.
We need an axe the tax election to elect a new common-sense Conservative government that will secure our borders, stop the drugs, lock up the criminals, axe taxes, approve and greenlight massive resource projects, cut the bureaucracy, and bring home Canada's promise.
Meanwhile, the new Liberal leader Mark Carney says the carbon pricing plan is not working, so a different approach is needed.
And since Canada's current climate policy has become too divisive, it's time for a new, more effective climate plan that everyone can get behind. My government will immediately remove the consumer carbon tax. But we won't stop there. Instead, what we'll do is create a system of incentives to reward Canadians for making greener choices. So it means that you'll no longer have to pay more to fuel your car or heat your home. But when you choose an energy-efficient appliance or an electric car or home insulation, you will be rewarded, and we will get the big polluters to pay for it.
Bloc Québécois leader Yves-François Blanchet supports a tax on carbon to address climate change.
Canada and United States are becoming real bad players in terms of environment and climate change, which do exist. Yes, they do exist, and the earth is not flat. And not doing anything is much more expensive than any tariff on carbon.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh says neither the Liberals nor the Conservatives have a plan that works for Canadians.
We have seen the Liberals' approach and the Conservative approach, and we didn't like either. It was clear to us that working folks did not feel that they were supported enough in the fight against the climate crisis, and we called that as a concern.
Green Party co-leader Elizabeth May argues carbon pricing is working, and leaders must do more, including ending the use of fossil fuels.
So we're 7.1% less than our 2005 emissions because of carbon pricing. So don't for any reason, because of political pressure or rhyming slogans, give up the one thing that is reducing emissions. At the same time that 7.1% below 2005 is better than continuing to grow our emissions, we have a legally binding target to reduce emissions by 40 to 45% below 2005 emissions, and to do it by 2030, and that target is weak. To stay to below 2 degrees Celsius global average temperature increase, to try to hold to 1.5 degrees, global average temperature increase, that means one thing: stop burning fossil fuels.
Our analysis says that absent the policies currently in place, emissions would be on track to be around 40% higher in 2030 than they're currently on track to be. So that's progress, and we shouldn't ignore the fact that progress is happening and has happened through industrial carbon pricing and other policies that has created the incentives for shifting towards low carbon options. And that's an indicator that what we're doing can work and that there's more to do, certainly, but it's not a hopeless cause by any stretch, and that there are additional emissions reductions to be had, there's additional progress to be made with smart, economically savvy policies that create the right incentives.
As Canadians continue with affordability issues, including housing and groceries, few are willing or able to pay more to address climate change, and that may put those net zero commitments at risk.